The mission-driven mentality is what an intentional life looks like. The person who is skilled in personal leadership has learned through programs like this how to coach themselves, how to ask good questions to get important answers, questions that are worth asking and answering to live a God-glorifying, satisfying life. Hi friend, welcome to this more detailed overview of the Well-Led Life Christian Leadership Program for students in grades 7 through 12. In 2025 to 2026, this upcoming school year, we are on year 2 of the 3-year leadership program for students. And year 2 is all about mission. It's called Discover Your Personal Mission. In this video, you will have a much better idea of what you can expect if you are looking for a resource to help your student answer questions like, what should I do with my life? What is my purpose here? Why did God create me? Does He have a calling for my life? And how do I know? How do I confirm that what I think I want to do in my career, the major I think I want to choose in college, is the right one for me? I have these questions about my future and I want clarity. I want confidence in moving forward. And I want the courage to test and approve God's will for my life this next school year. Students in the Well-Led Life Leadership Program begin their leadership journey in September of 2025 and end in April of 2026. They will meet with me in a group of peers for 16 weeks, twice a month. Currently, the class is scheduled for Sundays from either 4 to 5 p.m. for middle schoolers or 7 to 8 p.m. for high schoolers. Over the next several minutes, I am going to walk you through each week of the program, beginning with what is a mission. But before I do that, I want to show you the capstone project of the school year that every student will leave with in April of 2026. And that is a personal mission statement that looks like this. These happen to belong to my own teens. I pulled these off of their walls in their bedrooms. But every student will get to create their own personal mission statement using Canva. I give them a template on Canva, and through the school year, we discuss and fill in the different sections of this personal mission statement that goes through 8 critical questions that students will ask themselves to have a clear idea of what God might be calling them to use their gifts, their talents, their interests, their abilities to contribute to God's world for His glory. Besides creating a personal mission statement, other outcomes you can expect can be as specific as your junior, who now knows which colleges he or she wants to apply to, or what major he or she wants to put down on their applications. Your freshman could have a lot more clarity about which classes he or she wants to include in his freshman course load based on what he discovered about the direction that he wants to go in life. Your sophomore might decide that he or she wants to start a purpose project or a passion project of some sort, either in school or outside of school, in order to develop the abilities and interests that he or she now knows that he or she has. And that will give them the initiative and the motivation to do something that is aligned with the direction that they know they want to go in. One 8th grade student that I had the opportunity to work with confirmed halfway through this Discover Your Personal Mission course that she wanted to go into law. And because she got that confirmation through our discussions and exercises and class sessions, she was able to focus in 9th grade her course load on going in the direction of law school. So she joined debate. She joined a mock trial. She is now preparing to be the captain of her mock trial team her junior year. and she is applying to summer internships, looking to open doors to work for judges in the area and courthouses in the area. And she's doing a lot of research on what specific area of law does she want to specialize in. Another student discovered that he is very interested in international relations. And because he was able to think through what kinds of needs does he want to meet in the world, what is that zone of genius, we call it, where your interests and abilities overlap to help real people with real needs. He was able to focus his course load in high school on everything that would align with his intention to go into international relations. Those are a couple of stories and outcomes that have come out of this program. But there are more general outcomes that you can expect from this program, even if your student does not emerge with a clear career path or a clear college major. The more general outcome that I get really excited about, because I think this one will serve them for a lifetime, is emerging with a mission-driven mindset. And I'm about to get into what I mean by mission. But if you can have a mission-driven mindset, it is a tremendously freeing biblical perspective on the Christian life. Because as Christians, we have different missions, but we also have a common mission, which is to glorify God in anything and everything that we choose to do with our lives. And in middle school and high school, that is the perfect stage of life where students are actively searching for purpose, for calling, for identity. They're naturally asking themselves, what am I interested in? What skills do I have? What are my abilities? What do I actually care about? What matters to me? And which people do I want to serve with my interests and abilities? These kinds of questions are what compose of a mission-driven mentality or a mission-driven mindset. Just by asking students these questions, we put a rock in their shoe where now their brain is going to go search to answer those questions, because that's the nature of asking a question. It begs to be answered. And because they spend an hour together bi-monthly asking these mission-driven questions, they are forming a mission-driven mind, where now they go about their school day trying to answer the question of the week. It could be, what do I believe? What is my definition of success? What kind of work inspires me? These are the questions that compose the curriculum, and I will get into more details about each of those 8 critical questions that students will get to ask and answer. Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty of the Discover Your Personal Mission curriculum, beginning with what is a personal mission. I have these ideas in a 1-page article, and if you want a copy of this article called What is a Personal Mission, just comment article at the bottom of this video or email me, brenda@weleadthis.com, and I will get you a copy of this article. But a personal mission is a reason for living that is based more on your identity than on your ability. What is your reason for living? What is your purpose of existence? Whatever your answer is to that question, that is your mission. Why is mission based on identity and not on ability? Because what a person wants to do in life is determined by who he or she wants to be in life. Our doing is simply an expression of our being. And so we must start with identity as the root and the source of all of the choices and actions that we take. Okay, so why do we pursue certain fields and industries and lines of work? The reason we pursue specific lines of work and jobs is to gain access to meet the needs of those people. So you pursue the medical field to meet medical needs of people with medical problems. You pursue the legal field to meet the needs of people who have legal needs. You pursue business to meet the needs of customers and companies who need products and services that you provide. The reason we pursue jobs, industries, specific lines of work is to gain access to the people. God is interested in the people, and we are to be interested in the people. But there's 8 billion people in the world. So how are we going to narrow down which people to focus on? That's where you have to consider, well, what needs am I interested in meeting? And what needs am I equipped and talented enough to meet? What are my abilities? And those 3 questions, interests, abilities, and people's needs, that becomes what we are going to call your zone of genius. The last idea I want to say about what is a mission is that we are the ones who transform our work. The work is neutral. It is you as a unique and gifted and passionate individual made in the image of God, that you are a certain kind of doctor. You are a certain kind of engineer. You are a certain kind of business person. You are a certain kind of accountant. You are a certain kind of teacher. There are a million kinds of teachers, right? But there's nobody like you. And you transform the work of teaching. Your students are unique. Your classroom is unique because the way you teach is based on who you are, who you believe you are. The way you serve your customers is determined by who you believe you are and how you see your work. So you are the one that makes your work meaningful, that makes your work special and one of a kind. Understand? There are a million people who do what you do, but nobody does it like you. And when you're a Christian, you're even more special, right? You have a whole nother dimension of reality to bring to work every day and to bless your patients and clients and customers with. So mission is a very meaning-filled word that I want to use instead of job, career. Mission is more broad and general that may not include work that you get paid for, such as parenting. Parenting is a legitimate form of work that is not valued monetarily. All right, I'm going to say more about this later when we get to question 3, which is what kind of work inspires me. I told you this was a detailed overview, right? We're being detailed right now. All right, comment article if you want this article, or email me, brenda@weleadthis.com. Let's move on to the 8 questions that students will get to ask and answer through the 8-month program. Once students get to understand what a mission is a little bit better, we begin our curriculum with a preamble, a kind of prologue before we ask the first question of the 8 critical questions to discover your personal mission. And this preamble to the curriculum is all about God, because we have to orient ourselves around truth as a Christian program and a Christian curriculum. God is on a mission. So we spend the first discussion talking about what is God's mission? What is he doing in the world? What has he been doing throughout history before we showed up on the scene? And this really gives students a expansive perspective of their existence, right? They're given an opportunity to zoom way out from this point in time, in history, in their life. And they're given space to think about, what is God's mission? What's he doing? Because The point is to align your mission with God's mission. As Christians, we are here not to do our own thing. We are not competing with what God is trying to do. We are joining God in what he is doing, right? As followers of Christ, we are here to join God in his mission, align our service on earth to his service on earth. And we know that God is very busy saving and sanctifying his people, right? That's what glorifies himself. And so what does that look like for us? To join God in saving and sanctifying people. God is on a mission. The second part of the preamble has to do with what it means to glorify God with our lives. That is such a nebulous term, right? That we throw around all the time. We are called to glorify God. We have to glorify God in everything that we do, whether we eat or drink. And yet it's so challenging to define what it means to glorify God. So here we have very interesting conversation about what the students already know about glorifying God and what they still don't know. And I use some excerpts from John Piper and from Paul Tripp, and we put together a better understanding of what it means to glorify God. And the big question is, how is it not self-serving for God to glorify himself? That is a huge question that students have that they get to ask and we get to answer together. So I bring in a little bit of necessary theology and we talk about the aseity of God, of why only God can serve himself and glorify himself without it being self-serving. Why it's good for us, for God to glorify himself. That's a really big concept, right? But students need to treat God differently than they treat everybody else because God is different from everybody else. He is transcendent, right? He's a spirit. He's different from us. The creator is different from the creatures. And so, yes, they're going to get a little bit of necessary theology that I wish I had received in 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade. The last part of the preamble closes with a question that many students and even us might be asking in the very back of our minds. And that is, what if my life turns out to be ordinary? What if the dreams that I have for my future turn out to be average and not great in the sense of what the world considers great? Very remarkable, well paid, fame, fortune, freedom. What if I end up having just a normal life, a normal job, a normal family, a normal existence, and I'm going to be forgotten? Like 99% of the people will be forgotten about 100, 150 years after your death. That's just the reality of it. Can I find meaning and purpose if my life turns out not to be very remarkable, not to be very memorable, not to be very influential? What if I only end up serving a few people and I have a very small funeral when I leave this earth? We talk about that because those are questions I wish somebody had asked me in high school, when the expectation of a young, starry-eyed teenager is that you're going to do great things in your life. You're going to accomplish amazing things. God has a wonderful, amazing plan for your life. Yes, he does. But the expectations of what it means to have a wonderful life within God's plan needs to be managed. The expectations just need to be managed. And so I take a chapter from a book called Dream Small by a pastor named Seth Lewis, who did an amazing job articulating the extraordinary in the ordinary life. And so we're going to spend some time addressing that objection. I call it an objection because I think most of us and most of our kids don't consider an average, ordinary life to be very successful. And part of the challenge and the objective of this course is to redefine success. We spend a whole week on what is their definition of success. And it's really important, I think, that a Christian's definition of success is different from a non-Christian's definition of success. And they need the time and the space to consider that difference and to challenge themselves if they don't believe that you can live an ordinary life that is totally successful and satisfying and glorifying to God. Then why? Why does your definition of success not include just an average, ordinary, normal life? It's a very challenging question, I think, especially for this generation. And it's a question worth asking, worth challenging them with, and worth trying to answer. And even if they don't answer it, like I said before, the magic of an open-ended question is it will beg to be answered. And students will look for the answers in their daily lives simply because we've talked about it and we've opened up that question. Now they want to try to answer it. And it might require more than one school year. And that's fine. The important thing is that the question has been opened and now they're going to try to close it with a good answer. Okay, let me just say that I haven't even gotten into question 1, which is, what do I believe? And you can already tell what kind of student would thrive in this class, in this mastermind, in this program. If you're wondering what a mastermind is, it's simply the format that I use to conduct this class. And basically, a mastermind is not a lecture. It is a conversation. So I facilitate these open-ended questions, and I encourage the students to participate with their own thoughts and their own ideas. It's basically the ideal classroom. It's the classroom that every teacher is hoping to have. So the cameras are on, the chat box is open, and everybody is attentive and engaged and participating by sharing and bringing all their minds together and forming one bigger, better mastermind. Okay? You're probably wondering at this point, if you are still following and watching, is my student going to thrive in this class that's talking about these concepts, these ideas that are big and deep and important? If you have a student who loves to think, they're already maybe asking some of these questions, then this class is for you. If you're not sure if your student is ready or open to this kind of class with these kinds of questions, then book a call with me. Email me, brenda@weleadthis.com. Let me meet with your student on a Zoom call and get to know him or her, let him or her get to know me, and we can see if it's a good fit for this school year. I would love to help you assess your students' readiness for this class. I want to say there is a video course that is asynchronous, self-paced, completely online. It's 10 video modules with a printable workbook. You can use that at home with your student, self-paced. But what I have found is the completion rate of that course is quite low, because unless you have a highly motivated, self-driven kid who maybe is already in second semester of junior year and they're kind of desperate to find some direction and some clarity in their near future, students in the live class, in the bi-monthly live Zoom class, Mastermind, their completion rate is 100%. And so the live class is, in my experience, more effective if you are concerned about your student, getting through each module, each question, each week. All right. I want to say there is a video course that is asynchronous, self-paced, completely online. It's 10. Let's dive into question 1. What do I believe? What do I believe is where we have to begin, because what you believe determines everything else in your life, right? If you don't believe that there is a God, you don't believe that you were created, you believe that you evolved or exploded onto the earth, that's a very different worldview than the student who believes that they were created by an intelligent designer, a personal God who has a personal touch on their lives and is invested in the work of his hands. So whatever a student believes is going to have implications on what they think is their purpose here on earth, right? Because sure, if you don't believe in a God, there's no reason you would want to glorify God. That wouldn't even make sense to you. But then the question becomes, okay, let's follow that path of logic. If you don't believe that you were created, you don't believe that you need to glorify God, you have no fear of God, then how are you going to make sense of the purpose for being here on earth? Would you be satisfied with a life that is simply composed of eat, drink, and be merry, right? Maximize pleasure, minimize pain, and that is the point of being on earth, and just do something that isn't too terrible for work. I mean, students don't think in those stark terms, but part of this mastermind is that you are willing to be challenged, that you're willing to think a little more deeply. And I am going to ask those kinds of questions. And I'm not afraid to make you uncomfortable and to put a rock in your logic shoe and challenge you to, own your own opinions. The students who join my mastermind program, they, up till now, have all been Christians who want to grow in their faith. They appreciate the non-believing perspective and worldview because they all have non-believing people that they love in their lives, and they want to relate to those people more effectively. But they definitely want to understand what it means to glorify God and what are the implications if I believe that I have been created by an intelligent being with intention and purpose. It just drives them even more to find that purpose and to understand God's intentions for creating people. The concept I will introduce to the students in this module or section is how your beliefs will lead to your thoughts, which lead to your feelings, which lead to your actions, and your actions lead to habits. And so they will see how beliefs are where you have to start, because your daily life, which is just a series of habits, are all informed by your beliefs. And so that cycle is helpful for the students to understand why we're talking about what you believe. And they get to ask specific questions about what they don't yet believe, right? Like some students have said, honestly, I still don't understand why God needs to be glorified. Like, why can't he just glorify himself? Why do we need to glorify God? Isn't that a good question? Yeah, that's a really good question. And, we try to answer that together with scripture. And some of that is answered in the workbook. The students do get work sheets every week that are emailed to them that they will download and print out. But every year, the students are different, and depending on who is in the class, different kinds of questions get asked. And I trust God every single year to bring the students together and to handpick the students that are in this year's class. The second question is, what is my definition of success? This one, we talk about what is culture's definition of success. So they talk about all the influences that they are subject to every single day that propose a definition of success, right? It's usually fame, fortune, freedom, influence, and pleasure, comfort. And then we talk about the Bible's definition of success. I will ask them, well, what do you think God's definition of success is? And we look at passages in scripture about, seeking first the kingdom of God, and all these things will be added to you. The passage about what good is it for a man to gain the whole world and yet lose his own soul. And so they get to write down their definition of success, a working definition of success. It will change and grow and evolve as they learn and grow, but they have to kind of put into words, what do I think success is? Straight A's, an Ivy League college, approval of others, pleasing my parents. What is it? And they just have to know, what are they working with in terms of pursuing a quote unquote successful life? Because students say they want a successful life, but most of them haven't actually defined a successful life, or have been challenged to see a successful life in terms of culture's definition and scripture's definition. The third question is, what kind of work inspires me? If students can nail down what kind of work actually wins their respect and their admiration, it makes them stand in a standing ovation, that kind of work will point them in the right direction of where they are trying to go. So one question I try to ask them to think about is, what kind of before and after transformation really impress you or really warms your heart? Is it the patient who has pain and then they go to a doctor and then they are pain-free in a day or two? Is that the kind of transformation that inspires you? Is it the person who has physical discomfort and then goes to his physical therapist, does some exercises with the therapist, and is now empowered at home to do the same exercises and maintain his physical health? Is that physical therapy transformation what speaks to you? Is the kind of transformation that speaks to you the person who is living with his parents and is shopping for a house and works with a real estate agent and then receives the keys to his own home? Is that the kind of real estate inspiration and work that inspire you? So students will think in terms of transformation. What kinds of before and after stories that I've seen and heard really are meaningful to me and inspiring to me? Questions 4, 5, and 6 are what we are calling your zone of genius. And those 3 questions are asked one at a time, one class at a time, but together they form a Venn diagram of 3 overlapping circles, and that overlap in the center is that zone of genius, the sweet spot where your interests and abilities can actually help other people. And so the first question number 4 of 8 is, what are my interests? What am I interested in? And I provide students with a whole list of interests to get their wheels going. The second question, or question number 5, is, what are my abilities? What are my skills? What am I actually good at? One question they consider is, what have other people told me I'm good at? You don't have to like it. You just have to be good at it. Okay, I tell them that. Just because you're good at something doesn't mean you actually like it. All right, and that's why it's so important to consider interests, right? And then the third question to identify your zone of genius is, I think this one's the hardest one because students have told me that of the three, this one's the hardest. Who do I want to serve? So this one has to do with service. Who do I care about? Of the 8 billion people in the world, what demographic group, so they will learn the term demographics, and what are their psychographics? Like, what are these people thinking? What is their mentality? What is their frame of mind, their worldview? What ideas do they have that I am interested in influencing, in leading, in changing? And we use Maslow's hierarchy of needs to help students identify what kinds of needs do people have that you care deeply about. So, right, doctors, nurses, medical and health professionals, they are very invested in the physical needs of people, which is the very basic first level of needs, according to Abraham Maslow. And we use him very loosely, okay? We are not subscribing to his beliefs and his worldview. We are simply using his hierarchy of needs, his pyramid visual graphic, to help us consider all the different kinds of needs that are in the world. But I add my own level at the top of his pyramid. I take it a step farther and add the layer of self-transcendence, which is the spiritual needs of people that are obvious to me is a huge need, right? That Jesus identified and needs to be addressed. And so if that's the level of needs that you know is meaningful to you, then you might be called to be a pastor or a missionary or a youth pastor of some sort. The 7th question that students will get to ask and answer together is, what are your core values? Core values are so important, right? We know that every company, every church, every family has core values, whether or not they are stated, whether or not they are articulated. We all function by principles that matter to us. That's what a core value is. These are your highest non-negotiating principles to live the kind of life that you intend to live. These principles will guide students. They will help them to make decisions and choices. They will help students to protect their time and protect their energy so that they spend their time and energy on what really matters to them. Core values are what set the standard for our ideal self and our ideal life. So students will get to go through an exercise on their worksheets, and I will walk them through 6 or 7 questions, such as, which values do you respect the most? Which values fill you with life, positive energy, hope, and fulfillment? Which values describe you at your best? And then there are 4 columns of words, of values that they can review and pick from. And there's even space at the end for them to add values that are not found on those lists. And together, the students will pick, we start with 12 to 15 values, and we put them at the bottom section of a pyramid graphic to help them organize their process for choosing their top 5 core values. And I proceed to ask them, which values do you aspire to possess? So these values don't have to be qualities that they currently already possess. These are aspirational qualities that they want to possess and that they will try to possess. I ask them, what values are you willing to work for and make sacrifices for? So to give you a better example of the values that they are picking from, they're in alphabetical order on the worksheet. Acceptance, achievement, adventure, authenticity, beauty, biblical, challenge, compassion, connection, consistency, courage, creativity, dignity, empathy, encouragement, equality, faith, family, fearlessness, focus, forgiveness, freedom, friendship, fulfillment, fun. These are examples of core values that they can pick from. And what they do is they narrow down their 12 to 15. They narrow them down to 8 or 9. And then as I continue to ask them questions, which values, if suppressed, makes you feel unsettled and dissatisfied? Then they come up with their top 3 to 5. Some students want 6 or 7. I say, fine, that's better than 15. But they're able to narrow down everything that they consider important, valuable, significant, and list them. 3, 4, 5, 6 values. And that will appear on their personal mission statement, which is their capstone project that they are continually developing throughout the school year. Why is it important for them to go through this exercise? Because we need boundaries. We need a way to measure what we are going to spend our time and energy on, right? Also our money, all of our resources. We need to know how are we going to decide of all the extracurricular activities that exist, of all the elective classes that students can take in high school. How do you choose which ones are worth taking? And as they pursue their mission, students, once they are able to narrow down what they value, they will start to eliminate options that don't align with family, with equality, with empathy, with compassion, whatever their values are. My top 5, if I can remember them off the top of my head, are creativity, freedom, compassion, truth, and honesty. Those are my top 5 core values. Everything that I do in my life should develop and align with creativity, truth, freedom, honesty, and compassion. In fact, if you were to look at my schedule and the things I spend my time, money, and talents on every day, they do pretty much 95% of the activities I do all fall in line with those 5 values. This is something that makes a great family conversation. If you want to do the exact same exercise and print out a copy of that worksheet for yourself and then devote one family dinner to doing the exercise together and then discussing the results, that would be an amazing conversation to have with your family or with another sibling, another student in the house. Okay, I hope you see the value of defining your core values and how that really helps students to focus and to gain clarity on what it is that they find to be purposeful, to be their contribution to the world, to bring out what makes them unique and how they can serve the people that they have a heart to serve. The 8th and last question, and the reason that is in air quotes is because there is one 9th bonus question that I am not going to disclose on this video because I do like to keep it a secret for the students. Although if you look hard enough, you will find that question in the curriculum and in the video modules. The 8th question is, what defining moments have shaped who you are today? Defining moments. These are moments that changed us. And so students will go through an exercise where they get to reflect back on who they were growing up till now. So I literally give them on their worksheet, kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade. They get to just jot down in a few minutes what stands out to them in those years, in those seasons, in those grades, if they can be that specific. And I give them a list of questions to help them choose which moments were defining moments. And if you're wondering what is a defining moment, my student doesn't even know what a defining moment is. What I do is I use US history as an example, and I present like 10 or 11 defining moments for our country. This is being recorded in the USA, and so we use the US history as an example. For example, 9/11, 2001, that was a defining moment in America's story, in America's history, right? Things changed after 9/11. If you've flown anywhere, gone through the whole TSA process, you will feel the difference before 9/11 and after 9/11. landing a man on the moon, that was another defining moment in US history. So we give students these examples to help them understand, okay, these are moments that changed me, either in a positive way or in a negative way. One student shared that he moved to California from a different state, and he had to be honest during that exercise and say, I still haven't adjusted. I'm still struggling with that move, that huge change, at a late age in high school. And so he wrote down the move to California. That was a huge defining moment. And it led to him discovering why he isn't more confident making friends. It's because he had to start all over once he left his home that he grew up in. And he realized that it isn't as easy for him to make new friends and build a new community as he thought. So there was a bit of self-discovery there, important self-discovery. As students reflect on their past and the peaks and the low points of life, they begin to see what kinds of experiences in their life, and some of these align with their core values, right? If it was an experience of freedom, if it was an adventure, if it was risky, and they really came alive during those moments, those probably became their core values, and those are things that they want to continue to do in their life because they're so life-giving to them. They get to look for a message that comes through in these defining moments. So themes, and the way I explain themes to them is by using themes that they're already familiar with in literature. So books have themes, right? Courage, friendship, perseverance, love, right? These are themes that they are looking for throughout their life that they can put at the top of their personal mission statement is kind of the message of their life right now, like what they would put on a t-shirt, what they would yell from a rooftop, what they would put on a bumper sticker. What is the message that your life is exuding to others? Students actually like this question because it's kind of like a personal brand, right? It's like a branding exercise, like an identity exercise. What do you want to stand for? What is your life message? If you die tomorrow, what do you want people to say about you at your funeral? These are questions that are already in the back of their minds, but they have never had the opportunity to bring to the forefront, and this is that opportunity. It's a fun exercise, but I do tell them, that if you have gone through something traumatic, if you have gone through something very painful and very hurtful, to acknowledge it, right? To bravely and courageously acknowledge it. But if you find it triggering, if you find yourself in an unhealthy mental space because that moment was brought to memory, then listen to that. That might be telling you that you need to address whatever happened in that experience and to reach out and to get the help that you need to finish processing that event. Okay, the curriculum is coming to a close now. Now we are in our, 8th week of the curriculum, and we are now going to begin putting together the personal mission statement using a template that I provide for the students on Canva. And if you've seen some of my reels, and if you've gone to the weleadthis.com /mission page, you will see examples of personal mission statements. And I will bring some up on the screen here so that you don't have to go to that website to see them. But I held them up at the beginning, and I actually have a couple right here on my desk that I can hold up again. I'll just show you one, which belongs to my son. And this, grow 1% today. That was his life message this year, which was last year as a sophomore. And that is something he kind of says to himself every day. I just need to grow 1% today. And if you've read Atomic Habits by James Clear, the principle is if you just focus on improving one tiny percent every day, not 10%, not 20, not 50, just one, it will compound over time. And so my son likes that idea of compounding as long as he just takes that one step every day. So that becomes his life message. And that's kind of what he tells himself on his way to soccer practice, on his way to swim practice, where he has to jump into a pool at 5 p.m. at night when it's cold and windy. And, he's literally jumping out of his comfort zone into a cold pool. That life message can really serve your students well if they take the exercise seriously and they really pick something that motivates them, that inspires them, that will push them and pull them when they need it. Okay, I'm going to close this video by inviting you to book a call with me. If you are still watching this video after several minutes and you have endured this very detailed explanation of the entire curriculum for Discover Your Personal Mission, Year 2 of the Well-Led Life Leadership Mastermind program, then I think we're meant to connect. I think you should just take the next step and book a call with me. I would love to connect with you and to hear where your student's at, what his or her needs are, how what we do in the Leadership Mastermind might help you to meet their needs, whether it's learning how to set goals, learning how to build habits, learning how to think more deeply, how to be more reflective in their thinking, how to project into the future if they're very just present-minded, and just if your student needs to get excited about the future, if they are not really looking forward to high school, or they're not really looking forward to college, or they're not looking forward to growing up and being an adult. This year could really get them excited about what God could be doing in them and with them in their futures, and how to prepare for that mission now. If you have any questions, please contact me, Brenda, at WeLeadThis.com. If you want to book a call, there is a link at the bottom of this video where you can click and it will take you to a form to book a call with me, or you can just send me an email or DM me. There are many ways to get in touch with me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. I'm on all of those platforms. I would love to work with you and with your student this 2025-26 school year. And if your student is ready to try a class without committing to a whole year, and he or she wants to experience that class with other students, with other peers, I am hosting a leadership mastermind class this July. 3 classes actually that you can choose from. You can go to WeLeadThis.com/challenge and you will be taken to that summer challenge. It is a challenge because 99% of students are not thinking about mission. They are not thinking to create a personal mission statement. They're just trying to get through the day. I don't blame them. I'm not knocking them for that. That's our default setting. If you don't have an opportunity like this to zoom out of your life and think about the bigger picture, think about the bigger prayers that you need to say right now, and start talking to God and talking to counselors and parents and mentors about what might be my next step. I don't need to know the whole life plan, but I want clarity and focus for the next step I need to take. Even if it means just which classes do I need to pick this year and how do I even choose? Because they all sound interesting or none of them sound interesting. Hopefully, by the time they have gone through these 8 questions, they will have a better idea of the kinds of classes they need to put in their schedule. And they will have an easier time eliminating options that don't align with their values, that don't align with the person that they want to become, that don't align with what kind of work inspires them, that are totally not in their zone of genius. Okay, I thank you for listening this far. And if you're still listening, I'm telling you, we are meant to connect. And I would love to talk to you on Zoom just for 20 minutes. All right, guys, get in touch with me. I would love to serve you and your students this year. Thanks.